A 14-year-old boy who remains nameless and is said to have autism stabbed a teacher in the eye and knifed 2 students earlier this week after pulling out 2 knives and screaming, "I'm gonna kill you," during a horrific rampage at a Spanish school. The school is called the Elena Garcia Amara Institute. It's based in the city of Jerez de la Frontera, South Spain. And the 14-year-old is believed to have stabbed 3 teachers and 2 students. He stabbed them repeatedly as classes started at around 8:25 a.m. So there's a few witness reports. It's believed that the 14-year-old boy entered the classroom, he took out 2 large knives from his backpack and he stabbed everyone who passed by. Starting with his classmates, he attempted to take his classmates hostage, but teachers tried to restrain him. One of those teachers, a female teacher, was stabbed in the eye. They've had to have surgery. Let's hope and pray she's able to save her eye. Police were obviously called to the scene. They found and arrested the 14-year-old boy. He was still carrying 2 knives with him. And of course, the 14-year-old boy is being questioned by police. The investigation is ongoing. We're not told of any motive other than, I would say, mental illness. I'm not referring to the autism, although perhaps that plays its factor. I don't know. But it is very questionable as to what would motivate a 14-year-old boy, autism or no autism, to go on a stabbing rampage, to attack his classmates, to stab his classmates multiple times, and to attack his teachers. It's absolute craziness. Have we seen incidences like this before? Yes, these situations do occur, thankfully quite rarely, but is there an increase in this kind of terrible situation? I think so. I really don't know. I don't think the statistics are clear at this point, but it does seem that way. So if we're to ask ourselves what would lead a boy to do this, some people are going to point to games, video games. But I've got to say, video games have been around for a long time now. We've had the likes of GTA, Grand Theft Auto, Call of Duty, Battlefield. I mean, there are all of these horror games as well with quite visual graphics, graphic violence. There was that old Rockstar game, I think it was called Manhunt. Maybe I've got that wrong, where you play a psychopathic killer. But those games were decades ago. I mean, games have been around for a long time now. There's not been any proof that games are significantly responsible for this kind of violence. I think really we've got to consider this more of a mental health issue. Did the boy get adequate mental health care? We don't know. But of course, society is never going to be perfect. You can't give out therapy to absolutely everyone at all times. We can't monitor our mental health constantly of everyone in society. So, these situations are always going to occur to a degree. Perhaps security within the school could be increased. Perhaps they could have metal detectors or such. But how effective are they? We've seen reports, I can't remember specifics, but I do recall, I think, multiple articles that I've gone through where in America there are a number of schools that have metal detectors to detect guns, see-through backpacks, these kind of things, but still shootings, stabbings occur. Again, none of these things can be perfect. So I guess all we can do is what we can do in a reasonable sense. We can consider increasing security, perhaps trying to be more aware of the mental health of those around us. But it would be a shame to sanitize the entire world at all stages, wouldn't it? What are you going to do? Encourage school kids to go to school with knife-proof, stab-proof uniforms? I can see it happening at some point, but it's a real loss of innocence. So again, we're told that the 14-year-old boy stabbed 3 teachers and 2 students. One of the teachers was stabbed in the eye. They've undergone surgery. Let's hope they make a full recovery. We're not told of the condition of any of the other victims, which I find encouraging. I would expect that the news article would be in a position to inform us if any of the victims were in a critical condition. So I'm hoping that all of the victims are able to make full recoveries. Let's hope that the injuries aren't too serious. And thoughts and prayers to everyone touched by this awful situation. The victims, the other school children at the school, the parents, the teachers, people from the local community, going to be rocked by the situation, but seemingly we can be thankful that nobody was killed, and hopefully it's the case that nobody was severely injured. So what should happen to the 14-year-old boy? Well, I would say that they need to undergo a psychological examination immediately, and I would think that they need to obviously have their day in court. They made to face a trial once the investigation has been completed, etc. And we're not told of any charges being laid at this point in time. But I would hope that the 14-year-old boy is incarcerated for a very lengthy amount of time, either in a mental health institution of one kind or another, or in a prison. Okay, I'll accept a youth detention center up until the point that they're of adequate age to be transferred to an adult prison, I guess 18 years of age. Should some level of leeway be applied due to the boy's age? I'll say yes. I'll say some level, but not a great deal. I mean, discount the sentencing 25%, 30%, okay, but don't give the boy a slap on the wrist. Don't give him a 14-month detention or something like that. Society deserves to be safe, and we're not going to be safe if culprits are given a slap on the wrist and then sent on their way. So I do feel that the age does play a factor in regards to sentencing, as and when we get to that stage, as and when Spain gets to that stage. And I think the mental health also has its factor as well, largely in determining where he should be housed. Ultimately, if the authorities are able to identify that he suffers or suffered this psychological ailment or that psychological ailment, regardless of that, he performed these acts and he needs to pay for that. I'm all for Christian values, but I do question forgiveness, and I would not be in a rush to apply forgiveness. And I say that because I can imagine that being the case. I can imagine this 14-year-old getting a lot of sympathy. Oh no, he's got autism. Oh no, he was going through a psychological episode. Oh no, it's not his fault. He was overly influenced by video games. He was overly influenced by social media. He was overly influenced by gang rap, whatever it happens to be. There's going to be plenty of people that are going to attempt to soften the blow, attempt to mollycoddle this 14-year-old boy who is no longer an innocent. This boy went on a stabbing rampage. He took 2 knives to school. This was planned. As soon as school started, 8:25, he pulled the 2 knives out and he attacked his schoolmates. The teacher tried to intervene. He attacked the teacher, stabbed her in the eye. Other teachers got involved. They got stabbed too. So he's no longer an innocent. He no longer deserves to be fully mollycoddled. Some level of leeway, sure. Some level of understanding, sure. But ultimately, he needs to be punished severely. And again, I would say incarcerated in a psychological institute if that's appropriate, or in a prison once he's of age. But that's all I've got to say, so I'm going to wrap things up at this point. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit. If you're in a position to consider joining my memberships, please do. If you're not, that's perfectly fine. But I'm going to thank you for your time and take care.